Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial video, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to draw Spider-Man in a step-by-step way for beginners. You're probably curious to why I'm sitting here tracing a printed out piece of paper of Spider-Man. So the reason to this is by tracing it out you can obtain your dimensions very well, and it will seep through a little bit and show a little indentation on the actual drawing piece of paper of this outline of Spider-Man. So this is a very good way for beginners to learn and to get their dimensions down or any things that they have trouble with early on in the sketching process. So first off, I'm going to start by talking about the different materials I use in this drawing video. The first one obviously is just a standard pencil for the outline. Anyone can use that. And then the second one is the Jelly Roll White Pen. This is for highlights and any major white spots in the piece that I need to do. And then I got my two black and white Prismacolor pencils. They're also for highlights and shading and adding 3D effects to it. And then I got my three different grays I'm using. I'm using just a warm gray grease chawed. And there's three different types, 10, 20, and 60%. And I use those a lot for the gray shading and the in-between. And then I'm going on my Copic Markers. I use two different reds, only two in this whole entire Spider-Man drawing, of lipstick red and crimson red. And they will blend together very well, as you'll see. And then finally I use a black and grays. This is 100% black, and then a C6, a C4, and a C1 gray. Those are all for shading, and that's all the materials I used. You don't need to use Copics, but I do. So now you can see those little indentations on the actual piece of paper that I'm drawing on. They're just simply the pencil marks that I went over from that printed out piece of paper, and they lay it out very well on this actual drawing canvas I'm using. So now I'm going to go ahead and follow my indentations with my pencil and just draw the sketch. Doesn't need to be perfect, but I recommend that you get it as close to possible, because when you're drawing and coloring and shading the rest of the Spider-Man, you want to have good line structure, and sketch allows you to have that good line structure. And I'm going to finish this up here, this little sketch, because I actually went over the whole entire printout of the end and laid out my indentations for the Spider-Man drawing. And just follow this process, and like I said, make sure that your sketch lines are pretty clean, and it will allow you to have a very clean drawing with the markers and any other materials you're using later on. One also thing to note, cut this. One other thing to note is when you're doing your sketches, make sure that the lines meet up according to the picture. You don't want to have a lot of improvisation. Cut this out, go back to 2 minutes and 14 seconds on the actual Hit Film Express video. And then cut this out and start now. One other thing to note when you're doing your sketch lines is to make sure that you don't press down too hard. If you're pressing down too hard in your sketch lines, it's going to actually leave hard marks of pencil in your canvas or in your piece of paper that you're using, and then therefore it's going to be very hard to erase and very hard to cover up later on in your drawing. So you kind of want to go to either lighter or a medium type of feel when you are sketching this out. And mind you, this Spider-Man drawing is not going to be easy, and it's not going to take you a quick amount of time. This took me roughly 3 hours to do. So if you take your time and work on it here and there, you're going to see very good results. So do not speed through this process and get it right. And you can see, it's done, and it's the exact same format as the picture. Almost identical. So that's why I do this. And the next part is we're going to get onto the markers. And you have to erase it, but not all the way. And you want to erase most of this sketch, so like I said, it doesn't leave marks and it's easier to go over with your markers, and it doesn't have any flaws in your drawing. Now when you're going over with your marker, I'm using Copic Markers here, and this is actually a cherry red, lipstick red marker. But you can use other different types of markers. You don't need to use Copic, but I'm using Copic because I'm very used to it. And I'm taking my time on this. I'm going very slow, making sure that I do not go over the lines and into the actual grooves of Spider-Man. However, if you do mess up and say you have a little twitch or you sneeze or someone walks in or your brother hits you, it doesn't even matter what happens. You can always fix this later on in the drawing, and I'll show you how to fix any of your mistakes. So don't be worried if you're a beginner and you're not used to shading, not used to staying in the lines. You can easily patch that later with one tool I'm going to show you. Now I'm taking a little bit darker of a red. This is the cardinal red. I'm going to go on the left hand side of this drawing to kind of make it like a weird cool lighting effect. So it does provide some 3D and some more realistic of a drawing rather than just a flat red throughout the whole drawing. One thing you want to keep in mind is you can see how I mixed the cherry red and the cardinal together. When mixing them, it's called blending, and blending is actually a lot easier than people think. All you have to do with blending is take two similar colors with Copic markers or whatever marker, and then just go over them constantly back and forth. So you go over it with red, then you go over it with lipstick red, and then you keep repeating that process until it looks shaded and it's blended properly. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some gray marks throughout all the different lines and finish up my shading. Like I said, you just keep going over it and over it. And these gray marks that I'm placing, I'm going to be doing different types of gray, a C1 gray, a C3 gray, and a C6 gray. The larger the number, that means the darker the gray. And then if you keep looking at your picture or your reference, you can see that there's 3D additives within the drawing. And the way I'm adding this is I'm taking a black Prismacolor pencil. You can do whatever color pencil you want, and I'm simply going underneath each groove in Spider-Man or each sew mark to make sure that when you look at it, there's a light source coming from the top, and it makes it have a little bit of a 3D effect. And if your drawing is looking bad or you're discouraged by your drawing, keep going and you can always fix it later. It may look a little rough in the beginning. You may say, this isn't right, this is not how it's supposed to be. Well, you're not done with it. You can always do final touches later. Now this is a Uniball White Pen or a Jelly Roll White Pen. It's just white ink that will cover up any mark or white out any mark. And I use this for a lot of different shading techniques and or lighting techniques. Now as we're going to get onto the eye, we're going to work on the right eye first. I'm going over it with the C1 dark gray, a C8 dark gray, and the C6 to blend them in the middle. And I have a bunch of different grays and a various collection of grays, so the shading is a little bit easier than for me. I'm not sure what you have in your tools, but it's fine. Just keep mixing the grays together. And then use that black Prismacolor pencil and any other Prismacolor pencils to add in any other lighting effects and any shading marks. As you see, I went over a little bit with the white Prismacolor pencil. That's going to give a top level shade and light effect on the top right of the eye. And now the cool part about the eye, where you see all the webs and the random parts in his eye, I just went over with a gray C1 color pencil, and then later on I'm going to show you how to get the webbing and the different markings in his eye. One thing to keep in mind is your black color pencil is also a very good cover up. You can put that on mostly anything and it will make it disappear. So if you have an error that you need to fix with black color pencil, just put it on it and it will go away. Now I'm going to go do all the stitch marks within Spider-Man, and this is quite simple. I'm just simply going to be going down and putting lines all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to be making a brick pattern with these stitch marks. And the Prismacolor pencil I'm using is actually a little bit darker of a red than the cherry chapstick red that I've been using, or sorry, lipstick red that I've been using, and it just shows up a little bit more prominent on the lighter reds compared to the darker reds, which will provide a more 3D effect when you're looking at the final drawing at the end. Like I said here, I'm going to be just freehanding this and making a brick pattern in Spider-Man, because that's how Spider-Man is, usually a brick pattern stitching within his suit. So continue to do that and continue to follow this, and it will appear just realistic-like. And as you see, I constantly touch up with the Prismacolor pencils and any of the Uniball White Pen. And here is the cool webbing part for the eye. You just take a ruler and go in the same pattern on each of the eyes and repeat this in different patterns. So you can go vertical, horizontal, or perpendicular to however you like to, and do as many stitching in many different lines as you want to. It's a very simple process and the results are splendid. So we're going on to the second part of Spider-Man, which is the body. The body is obviously a lot bigger than the head, and will have a little bit of probably about the same amount of detail, and you want to do the exact same steps that you did with the head. You want to erase and then go over it with your Copic markers and then shade it and then touch it up. If you can look at the left hand side of the Spider-Man body, I'm using that cardinal red. Like I said, near the head, I'm doing that shading effect, so the light source is going to be on about the top right of this piece of paper, and the left side is going to be a little bit darker than the right. That's why I'm going to be using a darker red on the left hand compared to the right hand. And having strong line work in the beginning with your sketch is going to allow this process to be a lot easier and a lot more fluent. So that line work is very important to get them right and do all of the lines. It will allow you to place your Copic marker placement in a very easy and well-fashioned manner. So I'm going to take this cardinal red and then shade the whole left side red to where the reference had it shaded, so it's going to be more realistic and provide that 3D-like effect. I'm being very careful on where I want to shade. I don't want to get any of the spider or any of the different markings, the white left alone markings. Now I'm going to shade it. Remember, with shading, you just go over it with the lighter color and the darker color, then the lighter color, until it blends properly. It's essentially the oils mixing in with each other, and when they mix, it provides a smooth blend of different Copic marker colors. So instead of getting the cherry red or the cardinal red, you're getting a in-between red, and that is actually going to blend with the different types of reds that you use. Just like paint, if you're a painter, it's kind of the same way but using markers. So now I'm going to make those stitch marks, and I'm doing the chest first to kind of groove it and align it with the different pectoral muscles of Spider-Man so that the drawing will be more realistic like, and you don't want to have it flat. Now I'm going to freehand all of this because it's easier to freehand. You can either use a ruler or freehand it, but keep staying aligned with the different grooves and the different waves of Spider-Man. And I'm not pressing very hard on each one, and I continuously have to sharpen my pencil when I am doing these grooves because you want a very sharp pencil, otherwise it's going to be blurry and it's going to be fat lines. You don't want fat lines with stitch marks, so you always want to have them thin and pronounced. The main thing is look at your reference constantly. If you're a beginner and this is new for you, when you keep looking at the reference, you'll see how it's done and you will try and not mess anything up. You want to look at the reference and make it almost identical when you're just learning how to draw. And on the sides, I'm using blacks and different types of grays to meld the various colors together and blend it. Black blends very well with gray, so if you take in different grays like a higher gray, a C10 or a C8, the black will blend very well with it. And once again, I'm taking this is a C4 gray, I'm taking that to put all along the white lines throughout Spider-Man's suit, and it just provides a little bit darker and a more 3D effect. And if you know, I'm not going out through the whole entire suit with the C4 gray. I'm mixing up, doing a C1 gray, a C4 gray, and a C6 gray. Each of those will provide a different variation of shading and darkness within the lines. And now I'm taking the C6 gray and putting it on the left hand side to show that a darker content is pronounced over there. And now I'm following the reference identical to the Spider-Man, the spider in the middle of Spider-Man. I want this to be identical because it's a very hard part to improv, and you want every line to be almost identical so you get the shading done properly. Because the right side of this spider is going to be a little bit darker than the left, but it's a spider, so there's different grooves and the lags, and there's different grooves within the body, so you don't want to make it completely jaded to the left side as being all dark and the right side being all right. So if you follow this tutorial and look at your reference, you can see and shade it properly. Now the final touches are going to be that Prismacolor black pencil and that Jelly Roll White pen and a lot of the different gray colored pencils. Each of those is going to provide smoothness, 3D effect, and lighting effect within the Spider-Man. Follow your reference to know which exact locations should have that black Prismacolor pencil underneath it and have the white shading effect, Jelly Roll White pen underneath it. And the body is very similar to the head. The only differences you have is it's bigger and you have to be a little bit more careful of where you're putting your black groove marks and your shade marks. So I'm going to finish up this drawing by just doing a blue, 3-colored, tricolor blue background with a submarine blue, a sky blue, and a robin's egg blue. Each one shades very well, so you just have to go over it and over it and over it and shade it like you did with your red. And that is all to this Spider-Man tutorial. Like I said, it's very simple if you just take your time and look at the reference and watch this video over and over again. So please comment below what you think about it, and if you want me to do any more Spider-Man tutorials, I'm always open to do this stuff. So leave a like, and once again, click that subscribe button because your support is highly appreciated. So thank you and have a wonderful day.